Melania Trump throws Donald under the bus on Epstein files. She is running, and what she's running from could destroy everything. Okay, I need you to stay with me here because what I'm about to walk you through is something we don't see very often in American political life. The First Lady of the United States is running. Not metaphorically, not politically. She is literally running from a process server. She is hiding from a lawsuit. And the reason she's hiding tells you everything you need to know about what she and her husband are desperate to keep buried. Here's what you need to understand. Melania Trump threatened an author named Michael Wolff with $1 billion lawsuit. $1 billion. She demanded he retract statements he made about her connections to Jeffrey Epstein. She gave him a deadline. She told him if he didn't apologize and take it all back, she would destroy him in court. And then something happened that Melania Trump clearly did not anticipate. Michael Wolff said, okay, let's go to court, and he sued her first. Now she won't even accept the paperwork. Let me say that again so it lands properly. The First Lady of the United States sent a threatening legal letter demanding an apology and promising $1 billion lawsuit. The author called her bluff and filed his own lawsuit. And now Melania Trump is actively evading service of process like someone who knows exactly what's waiting for them in discovery. Think about what that means. If you're new to this channel, subscribe right now and turn on notifications because this story is about to get significantly more complicated and you're going to want to follow every development as it unfolds. Now let me take you through exactly how we got here because the timeline matters. On October 15th, 2025, Melania Trump's attorney, a man named Alejandro Bretto, sent Michael Wolff a letter. And this wasn't some polite request for a correction. This was a demand. The letter stated explicitly that Wolff must immediately retract and apologize for what it called false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements about Mrs. Trump. The statements in question, they appeared in a Daily Beast article. And here's what Melania's lawyer claimed was defamatory. That Melania Trump was very involved in the Epstein scandal, that she could be the missing link in President Trump's ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, that she was very involved in Epstein's social circle, that this is how she met Donald Trump, introduced through a model agent that both Trump and Epstein were involved with, and that Epstein knew her well. Melania's lawyer said all of this was false. All of it was defamatory. And if Wolff didn't comply by October 21st at 5 p.m., Melania would file legal action seeking over $1 billion in damages. Now here's where this gets interesting. Michael Wolff is not some random blogger. He's not a partisan commentator making things up. Michael Wolff was Donald Trump's biographer. He sat down with Trump. He sat down with Melania. He spent years in their orbit talking to the people closest to them. He knows where the bodies are buried, and I don't use that phrase lightly. But that's not all. Michael Wolff was also potentially going to be Jeffrey Epstein's biographer. Epstein spoke with him. Epstein told him things. And according to Wolff, Epstein showed him photographs. Stay with me here because this distinction matters enormously. When Melania Trump threatened Michael Wolff, she wasn't threatening some outsider with secondhand information. She was threatening someone who claims to have seen photographic evidence with his own eyes. Someone who says Jeffrey Epstein personally showed him snapshots of Donald Trump in compromising situations with young women of, in Wolff's words, indeterminate age. Wolff has described these photos publicly. He says there were about a dozen snapshots. Among them, at least 2 showed topless girls sitting in Trump's lap around Epstein's swimming pool. Another showed a stain on the front of Trump's pants with several girls laughing and pointing at it. Wolff says he saw those pictures himself. So when Melania Trump sent that threatening letter, she wasn't just poking a journalist, she was poking someone who claims to possess direct knowledge of her husband's activities with Jeffrey Epstein, someone who has been waiting for exactly this kind of opportunity, and she gave it to him. On October 21st, 2025, the same day as Melania's deadline, Michael Wolff filed his lawsuit. He didn't wait for her to sue him. He sued her first. His claims included abuse of process and violations of his First Amendment rights. He argued that Melania's billion-dollar threat was designed to chill his speech, to silence him, to make him afraid to report what he knows. And now here's the part that should concern everyone in the Trump orbit. By filing this lawsuit, Michael Wolff has opened the door to discovery, and discovery is where the real damage happens. If you're finding this valuable, hit that like button right now because this is where the story takes a turn that the Trumps clearly did not see coming. In a civil lawsuit, both sides get to demand documents, they get to issue subpoenas, they get to take depositions under oath, and Michael Wolff has made clear exactly what he wants. He wants Melania Trump's deposition. He wants Donald Trump's deposition. He wants their phones, their text messages, their emails, all of their communications relating to Jeffrey Epstein. Think about what that means for a sitting president. Wolf himself has said this publicly. He said this is an opportunity to ask all of the questions they have refused to answer. Questions about Trump's long, deep, abiding relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Questions about the details of their financial involvement. Questions about their involvement with young women. Questions about Melania's history, how she came to this country, what she did when she arrived, how she actually met Donald Trump. And here's the thing. These aren't hypothetical questions. These are questions that will be asked under oath if this lawsuit proceeds, which is why Melania Trump appears to be doing everything in her power to make sure it doesn't proceed. According to Michael Wolff, his team has tried repeatedly to serve Melania with the lawsuit. They tried to serve her lawyer, the same lawyer who sent the threatening letter and who explicitly said in that letter to direct all future correspondence to his attention. That lawyer is now refusing to accept service. He's claiming he doesn't represent her in connection with this lawsuit. They sent a process server to Trump Tower, where they understand Melania lives. The first server panicked when they found out who they were trying to serve and refused to do it. A second server arrived and was blocked by security. Security told them they would take any papers and throw them in the garbage. But here's the detail that matters. Security confirmed that Melania Trump lives at Trump Tower, not at the White House, at Trump Tower in New York. The First Lady of the United States does not live in the White House, and she's using her separate residence to hide from a lawsuit that she provoked. Now, let me connect some dots here because there's a pattern that emerges when you look at Melania's behavior. She didn't just threaten Michael Wolff, she threatened Hunter Biden too. Same playbook, same billion-dollar lawsuit threat, same demand for an apology and retraction over statements about her Epstein connections. And Hunter Biden's response was the same as Michael Wolff's. He said, "Please do it. Sue me." He pointed out that in court he would have the right to depose Melania. He would have the right to subpoena everyone in their circle. He would have the right to seek discovery about the genesis of the relationship between Donald Trump and Melania and their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Melania never sued Hunter Biden. She never sued Michael Wolff either. She just threatened. And when they called her bluff, she ran. Here's why that matters. When someone threatens a billion-dollar lawsuit and then refuses to file it, that tells you something. It tells you they were never serious about going to court. They were serious about intimidation. They were serious about silencing, but they were not serious about actually subjecting themselves to the discovery process that a real lawsuit would require. And now Michael Wolff has forced her into exactly the situation she was trying to avoid. Drop a comment right now. Tell me where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story is reaching, because what happens next could determine whether the American public ever learns the truth about the Epstein connections at the highest levels of our government. Now, let me take you deeper into why these questions about Melania matter so much. There are things about Melania Trump's background that have never been fully explained, things that journalists have been asking about for nearly a decade without getting straight answers. For years, Melania's professional website claimed she had obtained a degree in architecture from the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia. This was reported as fact. It was part of her official biography. And then reporters actually checked. And it turned out she left after her first year to pursue a modeling career in Milan. She never graduated. The claim was false. When this was exposed in 2016, Melania's website was quietly scrubbed of all its content. People clicking on it were redirected to the Trump Organization website. Her explanation was that the website didn't accurately reflect her current business interests, but that's not why it was removed. It was removed because it didn't accurately reflect her past. This matters because it establishes a pattern, a willingness to misrepresent biographical details, a willingness to claim credentials that don't exist, and it raises questions about what else might have been misrepresented. How did Melania come to the United States? How did she qualify for an Einstein visa, a category reserved for individuals with extraordinary ability? What was the nature of her work in those early years? And what was her actual relationship to the modeling agencies that also had connections to Jeffrey Epstein? These questions were raised back in 2016. Trump himself promised to hold a press conference where Melania would present documentation proving she immigrated legally. That press conference never happened. And here's where Paolo Zampoli enters the picture. Zampoli is the modeling agent who discovered Melania in Milan. He secured her visa to the United States, and in 1998, he introduced her to Donald Trump at a party he hosted at the Kit Kat Club in Manhattan. On March 11, 2025, Donald Trump announced he was appointing Paolo Zampoli as special envoy for global partnerships. Think about what that means. The man who brought Melania to America, who introduced her to Trump, who has direct knowledge of those early years and how that relationship actually began, has just been given a diplomatic position by the Trump administration. That's not a coincidence. That's a strategic move. You keep the people who know things close. You make sure they're taken care of. You make sure they understand that their fortunes are tied to yours. But a deposition doesn't care about diplomatic appointments. A subpoena doesn't care about loyalty. And if Michael Wolff's lawsuit proceeds to discovery, all of these questions that have been deflected for years will finally have to be answered under oath. Now, let me tell you what Michael Wolff has said about Melania's feelings toward her husband, because this adds another dimension to everything we're seeing. Wolff has described a conversation where he asked someone in Trump's orbit what was really going on with Melania, why she never showed up to any of his court appearances, why she seemed so distant. According to Wolff, the person looked at him with disbelief, as if the answer should be obvious to anyone. And this person said she hates his guts. Those exact words. Wolff described another story where Jason Miller approached Melania about the first indictment and suggested it would be good optics for her to come and stand by her man. And she laughed. She said, "Nice try." And she didn't show up. If Melania Trump despises her husband as much as these accounts suggest, what happens when she's under oath being asked questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? What happens when she has to choose between protecting him and protecting herself? That's the nightmare scenario for Donald Trump. That's why this lawsuit matters so much. That's why Melania is running. Now, let me tell you what to watch for in the coming days. Michael Wolff has said he will go into court to seek what's called alternative service. When someone actively evades a process server, the court can deem the lawsuit served anyway. Based on the documented attempts to serve Melania, based on her lawyer's refusal to accept service despite explicitly inviting future correspondence, a judge is very likely to grant this request. Once the lawsuit is deemed served, the clock starts ticking. Melania will have to respond. She'll have to either contest the lawsuit or face a default judgment. And if she contests it, discovery begins. That's when Michael Wolff gets to issue subpoenas. That's when he gets to demand documents. That's when Donald Trump himself could be compelled to sit for a deposition and answer questions about Jeffrey Epstein under oath. This is not speculation about what might happen someday. This is a lawsuit that has already been filed. These are legal mechanisms that are already in motion. The only question is whether Melania can keep running long enough to delay the inevitable. Let me leave you with three things. First, Melania Trump started this. She sent the threatening letter. She demanded the retraction. She promised the billion-dollar lawsuit. And when Michael Wolff called her bluff, she had no answer. This is a crisis entirely of her own making. Second, Michael Wolff is not going away. He has been waiting for this opportunity for years. He has direct knowledge that he claims comes from Jeffrey Epstein himself. He has seen photographs. He knows things. And now he has a legal mechanism to force answers to questions that have been dodged for a decade. Third, the discovery process in this lawsuit could expose more about Trump's Epstein connections than any government investigation ever has. Congressional committees can be stonewalled, criminal investigations can be derailed, but civil discovery operates by different rules. You don't get to plead the fifth to avoid answering questions. You don't get to claim executive privilege over personal conduct. You answer the questions or you face consequences. We are watching something historic unfold. A first lady hiding from a lawsuit she provoked. A president whose darkest secrets may finally be dragged into the light, and an author who has been waiting for exactly this moment. Democracy doesn't defend itself. It depends on people willing to ask hard questions and demand honest answers. Michael Wolff is asking those questions, and Melania Trump is running from them. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because this story is far from finished. When that court date happens, when discovery begins, when the subpoenas go out, you'll want to know about it. I'll be watching, and so should you.